Varanasi is one of the oldest living cities on earth, a place where death is not hidden or softened, but carried openly through narrow streets and laid beside the river as part of daily life. Funeral smoke rises with the morning mist, and bells ring to remind everyone that nothing is permanent. People do not come here to escape reality, but to face it. Because in Varanasi, dying is seen as a release, and living means accepting noise, decay, faith, and filth all at once. It is a city that overwhelms, unsettles, and challenges every visitor. Yet once you have stood by its burning fires, you realize Varanasi is not a destination you simply visit, but a truth you are forced to confront. A city where death is never hidden. In Varanasi, death does not wait behind walls or arrive quietly in the night. It moves through the city in plain sight, carried on bamboo stretchers, wrapped in simple cloth, passing so close that you can almost feel its presence as it slips through narrow alleys where daily life refuses to pause. If you are standing there, you will notice how shopkeepers keep selling flowers, how cows block the road without concern, how children stare with curiosity rather than fear. No one rushes, no one whispers, because here death is not treated as an interruption. Along the Ghats, funeral pyres burn without rest, day and night, their smoke drifting into the sky and settling over the river, mixing with the incense, dust, and the sound of prayers. And this is the moment when you, as a visitor, begin to feel uneasy, not because of the fire itself, but because of how normal it all seems. You might see a tea seller pouring hot chai beside a mourning family, or pilgrims stepping carefully around ashes on their way to bathe. Life and death share the same ground, the same air, without separation. In Varanasi, the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin, almost invisible, as if the city is quietly reminding you that nothing lasts forever. Whether you are ready or not, this place forces you to face a truth most of the modern world tries very hard to hide. Varanasi is not a place to visit, but a place to confront. Varanasi is not a city built for admiration or comfort. It does not invite visitors to slow down, take photos, and move on. From the moment one steps into its streets, the city feels demanding, almost confrontational, as if it is refusing to explain itself. Nothing here is arranged for convenience. The noise never fades, the crowds press close, and the air carries a weight that is hard to describe. Faith, poverty, devotion, decay, and belief exist side by side without separation, without apology. This is not a place that tries to appear spiritual or meaningful. It simply is, and that honesty can feel unsettling. Many arrive expecting enlightenment, and instead find confusion, even discomfort, because Varanasi does not offer answers gently. It exposes reality without filters, forcing anyone who walks its streets to face ideas about life and death that modern cities work hard to hide. At some point, you may realize that the unease is not caused by the city itself, but by what it reflects back. Varanasi does not perform for outsiders. It does not care if it is understood or misunderstood. It exists on its own terms, unchanged by curiosity or judgment. That is why it leaves such a lasting mark. This is not a place to simply visit. It is a place that challenges, confronts, and lingers long after you have left. Narrow alleys where filth becomes an everyday reality. The true character of Varanasi reveals itself inside its narrow alleys, where space is scarce and movement feels like a constant negotiation. These lanes are so tight that sunlight barely reaches the ground, and everything happens at close range. People walk shoulder to shoulder with cows, motorbikes squeeze past pedestrians, trash piles up beside doorways, and open drains run quietly along the edges. The air carries layers of smell, incense, food, waste, smoke, sweat, blending into something heavy and unforgettable. What feels most unsettling is not the dirt itself, but how normal it is here. Locals step over puddles without hesitation. Vendors prepare goods beside clogged gutters, and children move freely through spaces that would shock most visitors. There is no visible urgency to clean or organize, because these alleys were never built for modern sanitation or comfort. They are centuries old, shaped by tradition, density, and survival rather than planning. For outsiders, the chaos can feel overwhelming, even unbearable. But for those who live here, it is simply routine. The mess is familiar, predictable, and strangely functional. Privacy does not exist in these corridors, and neither does distance. Every sound, every movement, every presence overlaps. Over time, it becomes clear that the filth is not carelessness in the usual sense, but the consequence of history and overcrowding. These alleys do not apologize or explain themselves. They exist as they always have, forcing anyone who enters to rethink what cleanliness really means. Street food eaten among incense, smoke and funeral ash. Food in Varanasi is not separated from its surroundings. It exists right in the middle of everything the city represents. Street vendors line the roads with small carts and open stalls, frying snacks in bubbling oil, boiling milk for sweet chai, and stacking trays of colorful sweets just steps away from temples, traffic, and drifting smoke. The smell of spices mixes with incense, dust, and sometimes the faint trace of ash carried by the wind. For many visitors, this is where hesitation begins. You may find yourself drawn in by the aroma, then immediately questioning whether you should take a bite. Hygiene here does not follow the rules most people are used to. Hands move quickly, water is reused, surfaces are wiped with cloths that have seen many days. And yet, people eat without fear. Locals stand patiently, chatting, sipping hot tea from small cups, eating fried snacks straight from paper wrappers. Food is cheap, filling, and deeply woven into daily routine. Meals are not long or ceremonial. They are brief pauses between prayers, work, and movement. What makes eating here so striking is the contrast. You might be chewing something warm and comforting while bells ring nearby and smoke drifts overhead. Life, devotion, and decay exist in the same moment. Varanasi does not ask you to feel comfortable while eating. It asks you to accept the setting as it is. For many, this is where the city feels most real, where survival, faith, and appetite intersect without apology. Everyday life along the banks of the Ganges. Along the banks of the Ganges, daily life unfolds without clear boundaries between the sacred and the ordinary. From early morning until nightfall, the river becomes a shared space where countless routines overlap. People bathe in the water, scrubbing their bodies as prayers fall from their lips. Nearby, others wash clothes against stone steps, wringing fabric and laying it out to dry under the open sky. Just a few steps away, pilgrims sit quietly in meditation, while boatmen call out for passengers and children splash along the edges. The river is not treated as a distant symbol. It is used constantly, practically, and without hesitation. Offerings of flowers and candles float past plastic bottles and debris, carried by the same slow current. For outsiders, the contrast can be difficult to process. The water is revered as a purifier, yet it bears the weight of millions of lives depending on it each day. And still, people step in with confidence, trusting belief over appearance. There is no single rhythm here, only layers of activity happening at once. Work, worship, rest, and social life blend together on the stone steps. The riverbank becomes a living stage where tradition continues uninterrupted, despite crowding, pollution, and change. Watching this scene for long enough, it becomes clear that the Ganges is not just a river in Varanasi. It is the city's spine, carrying faith, routine, and contradiction side by side, hour after hour, without pause. The cremation fires that never go out. At Manikarnika Ghat, the rhythm of Varanasi reaches its most intense and unsettling form. Here, cremation fires burn without pause, day and night, fed by stacks of wood piled high along the stone steps. Bodies arrive continuously, wrapped in cloth, carried through the crowds with a calm that feels almost unreal. There are no barriers, no curtains, no attempt to separate the living from the dead. Everything happens in the open. Flames rise, crackle, and collapse into glowing embers, while priests chant and families watch in quiet stillness. For many, this is the first time death appears so close, so visible, and so ordinary. The smell of burning wood mixes with smoke and ash, drifting across the river and settling into the air. What makes this place so powerful is not the fire itself, but the belief behind it. To be cremated here is considered a blessing, a release from the endless cycle of rebirth. That belief gives meaning to every flame, every ritual, every farewell. Nearby, daily life continues. Boatmen wait for passengers, vendors sell tea, pilgrims pass by without slowing their steps. There is no dramatic silence, no sense that time should stop. Death is simply another presence in the city's flow. Standing here, it becomes impossible to ignore how differently life and death are understood in Varanasi. The fires do not symbolize an ending. They represent transition. And in their constant glow, the city makes one thing clear. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is delayed. Everything eventually returns to ash. A city filled with prayers and endless sound. Even when the flames fade from view, Varanasi never becomes quiet. Sound fills the city from every direction, weaving through streets, temples, and riverbanks without pause. Bells ring at dawn and continue long after sunset, marking rituals that follow an ancient rhythm. From loudspeakers mounted high above rooftops, prayers spill into the air, overlapping with chants, hymns, and devotional songs that echo through narrow alleys. There is no single source, no clear beginning or end. Everything blends together into a constant spiritual noise. At first, the sound feels overwhelming, almost chaotic. But with time, it begins to reveal structure. Each prayer signals a moment of devotion, a reminder of faith woven into daily life. In small temples, priests chant softly while incense burns. On the ghats, groups gather to sing together, their voices rising and falling with the river's movement. Even traffic horns and human voices seem to merge into this soundscape, becoming part of the city's pulse. Silence is rare here, and when it appears, it feels unnatural. The constant noise is not meant to distract. It is meant to remember. Every bell, every chant, every echo reinforces the presence of belief in ordinary moments. In Varanasi, faith is not confined to quiet spaces or specific hours. It spills into the streets, into work, into rest, and into sleep. The city does not ask for reflection in silence. It surrounds life with sound, ensuring that devotion is never far away, never forgotten, and never allowed to fade into the background. Lives shaped by faith, poverty, and routine. Beyond the rituals and symbols, Varanasi is also a city of ordinary lives shaped by difficult realities. Women carry heavy bundles through crowded streets, balancing daily labor with household responsibilities that begin before sunrise and end long after dark. Many spend hours at the river washing clothes or selling flowers for offerings, their work quiet and repetitive, yet essential to the city's rhythm. Children grow up surrounded by scenes most places would try to hide. They play near temples, weave through crowds with ease, and watch funeral processions pass as if they were part of the scenery. For them, this environment is not shocking. It is familiar. School, when it exists, often competes with work, family duty, or simple survival. Poverty is visible everywhere, yet it does not erase routine. Life continues with remarkable steadiness. People laugh, argue, bargain, and rest in the shade, adapting to conditions that seem unbearable to outsiders. What stands out is resilience rather than despair. Faith provides structure where resources are scarce, offering meaning when comfort is limited. Daily struggles are not romanticized here. They are endured. And while hardship is undeniable, there is also a sense of acceptance, a belief that life unfolds as it must. Watching these lives up close, it becomes clear that Varanasi is not defined only by death or devotion. It is defined by people learning to live within constraints, shaping normalcy out of chaos, and finding continuity in a city that has changed very little while the rest of the world has moved on. Visitors facing the shock of Varanasi. For many outsiders, arriving in Varanasi feels like stepping into a world with no familiar rules. Expectations of spirituality, peace, or quiet reflection quickly collide with noise, crowds, dirt, and scenes that feel too raw to process all at once. Some visitors arrive with cameras and curiosity, only to lower them after the first few hours, unsure of where looking becomes intrusive. Others feel unsettled without fully understanding why. It is not just what is seen, but how openly everything exists. Nothing is staged. Nothing is softened. Poverty, devotion, life and death are all visible at the same time. At first, the instinct is to compare, to judge, to search for meaning through the lens of one's own culture. But Varanasi resists that approach. It does not explain itself, and it does not wait for understanding. Many travelers experience moments of discomfort, even guilt, as they realize how protected their own lives are from decay and impermanence. Some leave early, overwhelmed by the intensity. Others stay longer than planned, slowly adjusting, learning to observe without constant reaction. Over time, the shock changes shape. What once felt unbearable begins to feel honest. Varanasi challenges visitors not through words, but through exposure. It forces a confrontation with realities most societies prefer to hide. And whether someone leaves inspired, disturbed, or confused, the experience rarely fades. Long after the noise is gone and the smoke clears, the memory of this city lingers, quietly reshaping how life, death, and meaning are understood. Varanasi is often remembered for its chaos and intensity, but beneath the noise and smoke lies a place that refuses to hide reality. Life is lived openly, and death is accepted without disguise. Nothing is softened for comfort or cleaned up for appearances. What seems like disorder is, in truth, a different kind of order shaped by belief rather than convenience. Varanasi does not offer easy answers. It offers perspective. And once you have walked its streets and stood beside its fires, something stays with you. This is not just a city you visit. It is a reminder you carry long after you leave. If this journey made you reflect, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed traveling through this story, like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, and share it with someone who loves curious places and untold stories.